History Paper 1, Section A, 25 marks. Name 2 Bantu communities in Kenya whose ancestors settled in the Mount Elgon area before migrating to their present homelands. Abaluya, Abakuria, Abagusi. Identify 2 economic activities which the Maasai acquired as a result of interacting with the Agikuyu during their settlement in Kenya. Cultivation of crops, trade. State 3 functions of the Council of Elders of the Borana during the pre-colonial period. Settled land disputes, organized traditional defense, maintained law and order in the community. 4. Why did Nabogo Mumia of the Wanga Kingdom collaborate with the British? 1. He wanted British assistance in the subduing his enemies, notably the Bakusu and the Luo of Ugenya. 2. He wanted the British to help him in his expansionist policy. 5. State 2 features of the education system in Kenya during the colonial period. 1. It was racially discriminatory in nature, that is, it discriminated against the Africans as they were given inferior education. 2. It was to a large extent missionary controlled. 3. The colonial government's involvement in African education was purely in the provision of grants in aid to the schools. Question 6. Identify 1 problem which independent schools faced during the colonial period. Number 1, lack of teachers. Number 2, lack of coordination among the schools. Question 7. What was the main grievance of the Kikuyu Central Association? Land alienation. Number 8. Name 2 nationalists with whom Oginga Odinga formed the initial forum for the restoration of democracy. Ford, Masinde Muliro, Martin Shikoku, Philip Gashoka, George Ndege, Ahmed Salim Baharis. Number 9. State the main reason why the government introduced African socialism: to promote all-round equality and opportunities in the society. Number 10. Give 2 social functions that promote national unity: interethnic marriages, religion, education, games and sports, drama and music festivals, urbanization. Question 11. Give 2 disadvantages of unwritten constitutions: they can easily be manipulated by those in power to satisfy their interest. Court cases take too long to be completed because legal information is sourced from many sources. Question 12. Name the document that dashed settlers' hopes of making Kenya a white man's country. The Dovesha White Paper of 1923. Question 13. State the composition of Kenya's parliament: elected members, nominated members, ex officio members. 14. State 1 function of the Qadhi's court: to settle marriage and divorce cases between Muslims. 2. To settle inheritance disputes between Muslims. 15. Name 1 official who represents the central government in local authorities: the district commissioner. 2. Clerk to the council. 3. Nominated councillors. Section B, 45 marks. 16A. Name 3 communities which had mixed reactions towards the establishment of British colonial rule. 1. Akamba, 2. Agikuyu, 3. Luo. Question 16B. Explain results of the Maasai Agreements of 1904 and 1911. 1. Food aid and medical attention were made available to the Maasai by the British through missionaries. 2. Lenana safeguarded his position as the Laibon of the Maasai. Later, the British gave him official recognition by entitling him the paramount chief of the Maasai. 3. Through British protection threats from Maasai traditional enemies, for example the Nandi and the Agikuyu, were kept off. The British went on to use the Maasai mercenaries in their wars against resisting communities, for example the Nandi. 5. The Maasai faced restrictions in their economic activities and could not graze their livestock over expansive territories as before. They were also forced to reduce their cattle. 6. The Maasai lost much of their land to the colonial government and settlers. They were restricted to reserves, for example, the Gong Reserve. 7. The Maasai lost their independence. 8. Lenana became a leader with very limited powers. He was reduced to the level of only a figurehead. 17. Name 3 sources of revenue for the colonial government in Kenya. Taxes levied on Africans, loans from banks and other financial institutions, agriculture, grants from the colonial office in London. 17b. Explain the economic problems faced by the British administrators as they tried to establish colonial rule in Kenya. Number 1. Resistance from the local communities was a major hindrance to the establishment of colonial rule. The Nandi resistance is a case in point. It made the work of the colonial authorities difficult. Number 2. Insufficient personnel to administer the country was also a problem. The colonial government did not have enough trained personnel to man the various government stations and carry out various government functions. 3. The colonial authorities also did not have adequate funds to enable them finance most of their activities. This was despite the taxes that they levied on residents. 4. The vastness of the country was also a major problem. It was not easy for them to travel through the vast country as they tried to establish their control. 5. The colonial authorities also faced communication problems. They did not understand the local languages and had to rely on translators. 6. The administrators had also to reckon with the tropical climatic conditions, which were different from those of their country of origin. It was thus not easy as they went about establishing colonial rule. Question 18a. State 3 reasons why the British government built the Uganda Railway. 1. To establish effective control over British East African by linking the coast with Uganda. 2. To facilitate the movement of troops and administrators within the British colony. 3. To promote economic growth by linking Uganda with the East Coast and the outside world. 4. To stop slave trade and promote legitimate trade. Question 18b. What were the effects of the construction of the Uganda Railway on the economy of Kenya during the colonial period? Number 1. It facilitated the growth of urban centers. Towns grew along the line, for example, Nairobi, Nakuru, and Kisumu. Mombasa became more important because it served as a port. 2. During construction, Indians were brought in to help. After the completion of the line, they stayed on and engaged in commercial activities. For example, they set up shops along the line to supply the needs of the Europeans and other Indians. Later, they spread all over the country and introduced the first modern currency, the rupee. 3. The railway enabled Europeans to travel into the interior. They occupied the White Highlands and later played a vital role in the colonial economy. 4. European settlement into the interior led to the introduction of cash crop economy. This created jobs for the Africans in the settler farms. 5. During the construction of the railway, Africans were employed as semi-skilled workers. After completion, Africans still got jobs as semi-skilled workers. 6. It enabled the government to control the protectorate more effectively. 7. The extension of the railway to economically potential areas, for example Magadi, Eldoret and Kitale, brought in more revenue to the government. 8. It led to the introduction of money economy into the African setup, since Asian traders began to buy produce from African farmers for sale in towns. 9. It encouraged the development of African peasant farming in crops such as simsim, groundnuts, millet and maize. 10. The completion of the railway encouraged missionaries to settle in the country. They established hospitals and schools where they taught such useful skills and trades as farming, masonry, tailoring, carpentry and literacy. Question 19a. State 3 principles upon which the Nyayo philosophy is based. 1. African socialism and Harambee. 2. Peace, love and unity. 3. Being mindful of the welfare of other people. And 4. Mutual social responsibility. Question 19b. Explain the impact of Nyayoism. Number 1. It has led to the expansion of medical services through the construction of Nyayo wards. 2. Needy students who wish to pursue higher education have been assisted. 3. Nyayo tea zones were established to facilitate the expansion of the tea growing. 4. Education has witnessed growth and the welfare of girls taken care of through institutions, particularly those in arid and semi-arid lands. 5. Kenya has been instrumental in conflict resolution in Eastern Africa in the spirit of peace, love and unity. In 1988, Daniel Arap Moi set up a fund to assist the disabled persons in the society. Number 7. Nyayo tea zones also border certain forests. They therefore act as a buffer against wanton destruction of trees. 8. Nyayoism contributed to the formation of the Moi African Institute for the Promotion of Peace. Soon after his retirement in 2002, former President Moi created the organization. It is also involved in famine relief operations. 9. Kenya security forces, including the police, have and continue accepting invitations to participate in the UN's peacekeeping missions. Section C, 30 marks. Answer any 2 questions. 20a. State the 5 conditions for citizenship by naturalization in Kenya. 1. Age 21 years and above. 2. A legal resident of Kenya for 12 months prior to application. Resident of Kenya for a cumulative period of 4 years prior to application. 4. Good character. 5. Adequate knowledge of Kiswahili, Kenya's national language. 6. Proof that one intends to remain citizen after registration. 20b. Explain 5 circumstances that may force the government to limit the rights and freedoms of an individual in Kenya. 1. Involvement in crime. If one is involved in crime, the government will be forced to arrest and detain him or her. 2. Right to own property may be deprived if the government wishes to use private land for a public utility. The owner will, however, be compensated. 3. If one is a threat to the security of the country, he or she may be arrested. 4. Mental illness and other infectious diseases, for example, Ebola. Such people may be detained in health facilities for treatment. 5. Incitement of people against the government may lead to limitation of the freedom of speech or expression. 21a. Identify 5 factors that may lead to limitation of the rights and freedoms of a Kenyan. 1. Violation of the laws of the land. 2. Interference with other people's rights. 3. Prison sentences. Those serving prison sentences are denied some rights, for example, right to liberty. 4. Age. Persons below the age of 18 years are considered children and are therefore denied the right to marry, vote. 5. Threat to the security of the land. Persons whose actions or speech are likely to interfere with the security of the nation will be arrested. 21b. Explain the significance of human rights in Kenya. 1. Human rights promote national unity in multi-ethnic societies as all people have equal rights and responsibilities. 2. They ensure equal treatment of all citizens by the government because in essence, all are equal. 3. They determine the relationship between the rulers and the ruled. The rulers protect the rights of the citizens as the rules carry out their duties towards the government. 4. They enable citizens to get proper services from the government. The citizens know and demand for their rights, e.g. basic education, health care. 5. Human rights enable people to develop physically and spiritually. 6. Human rights facilitate good governance, as those in power are carefully not to violate the rights of the citizens. Question 22a. Name 3 members of the provincial administration who are appointed by the Public Service Commission. 1. The district officers, the chiefs, the assistant chiefs. 22b. Explain the functions of a chief in Kenya. A chief maintains law and order in the location by arresting lawbreakers and encouraging people to live harmoniously. 2. The chief explains government's policies to the people in his or her location during public barazas. 3. The chief issues permits for both public and private functions within the location. 4. The chief settles minor disputes between the people in his or her location. 5. He or she mobilizes people to participate in public works for the common good of the people. 6. He links the government and the people at the locational level. 7. He provides notifications of births and deaths to the government. 8. He alerts the government on outbreaks of diseases within the location. 9. The chief chairs the location's development committee meetings. Did you understand? Kindly